So, Christian, you retired at 65, which was last year, but you obviously couldn't handle that. So you decided to start your own company. Is that right?
That is right. That is right. But there's obviously a reason for this. And then the reason was that I just lost my wife just prior to myself retiring. And I had to really re-engineer my whole life. And I had to think of another path, because basically I was going to retire and we were going to live on a sailing boat and cruise around the Med. And if we got braver, we would hop across the Atlantic. But all those plans completely turned in the whole of Jilly's death, turned upside down. So here I am starting another business. Wasn't my plan, but it's a good one.
How were you able to manage that huge change in your life? How have you processed your emotions and your feelings around that in the 2 years since she passed?
Well, this is grief, and grief is a great big gaping hole, really. And it's a very strange thing because it's a very personal journey. I've got 4 kids. Well, we both have 4 children. And we're all on this grief path together, but it's a path you can't share. It's a path that is very personal to each and every one. We talk about it, but we're all in different positions with it. And to handle it, you can dip in and out emotionally. And the best way of describing it, it's like a tide, and the tide comes in and goes out. So it's the emotion that comes in and goes out, and it washes in and washes out. Some days are really very rough, and other days are much smoother, and you never quite know what to expect really with it. So you can't fight it, you go with it, you flow with it.
Thank you for sharing that, Christian. And just tell us a little bit about what your line of work and your business is and where you live. I know you've got a couple of homes.
Yeah, so I principally live in the country, in a place in Cheshire. And that's our family home. So that's where we brought up our 4 children. That's where they were all sent to school. And it's a house in the middle of fields, really. So it's right in the middle of the countryside. Very pretty, very nice. I feel very lucky to have that. But the business is based in London. So I spent my life commuting between the two, but I used to come down and only spend 3 nights. And I'm in London, in Fulham. And we have a lovely flat here as well. So I feel very fortunate to be able to have the best of both worlds.
Yeah. And what was going on with your drinking habits that inspired you to seek some support from me and my organization and join Project 90? So just tell us a little bit about what your drinking habits were before then.
Well, there's 2 parts there. So if I go back to when I met Jilly 36 years ago, my drinking habits were I would call normal. So even it was the 6 o'clock glass of wine or a glass of champagne, with her. She used to like her sparkly champagne. I used to like my wine. And it was pretty moderate. It wasn't too bad at all. But what I noticed that over the years, it increased, and so did hers, actually, not out of control. Interestingly, she always said to me, "You haven't got a problem," because she used to work with an alcoholic, and she was an editor for a film company, and the other editor did have problems. So she always used to say, "You haven't got a problem at all," because I was conscious that I thought I drank too much. And then when she died, bless her, well, actually, no, it goes before. When she was diagnosed, she was diagnosed with a brain tumor 4 years before she died. And she had 2 brain ops and 2 sets of radiotherapy disabled. So the tumor sat in her motor cortex. The motor cortex is responsible for all movement, and her movement was especially on the left side. So she was really left in a wheelchair, and all the care fell to me. I didn't really want to bring people in. So I used to call myself the puppeteer. So I used to make all her limbs work, whether it be going upstairs or coming downstairs or getting dressed and so on and so forth. And her whole motion was not too bad at the beginning, but it just got much worse as the 4 years progressed, to the point where she became much more incontinent. So it became more difficult, really, but I still soldiered on because that's what I wanted to do. So my crutch through it all was alcohol. And I hadn't quite really worked out how much it was increasing, but it was increasing to the point that I was numbing what was going on. So that was my way of coping. I was 24/7 carer. And at a certain stage, when I got her into bed and I got her into peaceful thought, I would just hit the bottle. And what I loved drinking was wine, and that's what I didn't really watch too much, or I didn't want to watch. And so that's how I coped with the decline of Jilly, and ultimately into her death, and then carried on really through her death. So I realized then that it was getting the better of me, and that's when I was aware of you. So I've had a relationship with you without you even knowing, because I originally saw you
in a relationship I wasn't aware of, Christian. This is good. Tell me.
It was, but I came across you on Facebook about probably 5 or 6 years ago, really.
Wow,
and it was interesting. And I just tagged it and I watched it. And then into the program that we went into where she was getting well. So about 4 years through where she was ill, I did your 30 days. And
30-day no alcohol challenge is just for the benefit of our listener, I have a 30-day no alcohol challenge, which is at 30daynoalcoholchallenge.com, where you can just take a 30-day break. It doesn't necessarily guarantee you lifelong power over your drinking habits doing 30 days, but it can be a good start. So just wanted to provide that context. Christian, carry on.
Yeah. It was a good start, and it gave me the 30 days, and it made the 30 days quite easy. But what I noticed was that as soon as it had finished, I was back to my old tricks again. So, the habit is there. And before I knew what, it only took a month or two, and I was drinking the same sort of levels again. So it made me feel as though I could break it, but I hadn't actually realized what a hold it had on me. And that's what led me into Project 90, really. Well, there's a few reasons that you have to look at the whys, but there are a few whys why I came into Project 90.
I'm going to ask you later on what you perceive to be the differences between doing that 30-day break and then doing the 90-day coaching with us in Project 90. But what were the whys? What was your number one why, and what was number 2 and 3?
Well, there's a few. So the first why I drank, I think, was that we both loved traveling. So we both did some quite extraordinary traveling. We both did one extraordinary trip, which was riding a couple of bicycles when we first got married across Africa. So that was a 10,000-mile trip. That took a year, but it was an adventure. And my soul seeks adventure. It loves adventure. It loves looking at different things. It loves being challenged. So when we both got married, we both turned to alcohol a little bit because of that monotony. And then that was perfectly acceptable. There weren't any drinking problems there at all, as I would see it. And then really the second why was her illness. And that's when I really started to turn to it in a much more heavy way, and it got more of a grip. But the biggest why was my children, the 4 children. So what I noticed was what was happening was that, in the evening of my drinking, and so I always wake up with this sense of shame, trying to remember what we spoken about, and then I would come down for breakfast and I would just blag it. I would pretend that nothing had happened, but they would say something, and I was just left feeling, I don't know what they said. I don't know what I said. And that sense of shame was the shame that really led me, look, you've got to do something about this, because I don't want my life to carry on like that. So it's the kids, really.
Yeah. Again, thank you for sharing that. I appreciate you opening up about your thought processes and what you were feeling. And did your kids say anything to you about your drinking?
Yeah, they did. They were they knew I was in a difficult place and a dark place with grief. They were as well. And but I think they didn't really have to say too much because the unspoken word is often stronger than the spoken word. And it's sometimes how they looked at me, or it's sometimes that they would say, "Dad, can't you remember that?" And or they would find me asleep and they would wake me up. So it's all those things that my reaction was more of shame, and I just thought, you're the father, you've lost the mother now. You've got to sort of pull together and lead it in the way it should be led.
Got it. And was there one particular moment that was the catalyst for you saying, okay, time for me to actually do something significant about this, which resulted in you joining our program, Project 90? Was there a moment, or was it accumulation of many moments?
Yeah, it's accumulation of many moments. I'm the sort of person that, I looked at my diary and I made a conscious decision of the next 3 months of when I wanted to join. So I already blocked off 3 months in my diary of when I would join you, but I didn't make any communication to you at that stage. I just knew that was the stage that I was going to join because I knew the commitments were busy and I was going to go through, obviously, Christmas and New Year, which is a strange time to do it. But I just thought if I can get through that, I can then get through most. And I just thought, so the timing would be right. And that's how I looked at it, really. So I called you. I wanted to start the whole thing in October the 1st. And I just wanted it to run through concurrently. So it's my rather logical way of thinking, which is what I tend to do anyway. So that's how I joined.
And was your motivation to join, do you think, to relieve yourself of the shame and the guilt around, your drinking habits in front of your children? Or was your motivation to feel better and to be clear and to be more connected? Because human beings are either running away from pain or we're running towards fulfillment or joy. So do you know which one of those two was the stronger motivation?
From where I was, I knew I was plunging. So I knew that I was in grief. I knew that the way I was handling it was not the right way. And what I wanted was to be free of alcohol. I wanted to see, I'd done 30 days. I wanted to see now, can I prove to myself that I can do 90 days? So I wanted to have the abstinence from it all. And because it had been successful on the 30 days, I thought you'd have the right tools to take me through the 90 days. And that was the main reason. I just wanted a freedom from it. I wanted to see how I changed. Because you have to think, I haven't probably given up alcohol for 30 days since I was probably, on the bicycle ride, but really since I was 18. So I've probably drunk in a daily way since then. So I've never had that period. So I wanted to see if I could do it. So it became more of a challenge.
Yeah, got it. And then during your 90 days, how much of it was, this is tough. I'm white knuckling this. I'm doing my best not to drink. And what part of it was, actually, I feel like I've turned the corner here and I actually enjoy this clarity and this focus and living this alcohol-free life?
Well, there's lots of stages to giving up. I mean, the first week is a wonderful week because, you think, oh, God, this is easy. This is great. I've lasted a whole week without drinking. I can sleep a bit better. There's more clarity and so on and so forth. But it's also a dangerous week because after that, you think, hang on, this is pretty easy. And you think, well, I might be able to have a drink, So your mind flips onto the other side. And then you start thinking about what you're missing. And then you start thinking about, God, I'm really quite boring without alcohol. And what do people think? Do they just think I'm sitting in the corner and not doing anything? So you then go through another stage. And that stage I thought was just being quite boring. And then you come out into another stage where you begin to thaw. So the thaw is from the numbness of alcohol, and the thaw starts to evaporate. And you get in touch with your feelings again. And that's the roller coaster. I think when the feelings come through for the first time, which you've denied yourself, is when you get onto the roller coaster and you travel through that, really. And if you hang on there and hang in there, you come out. And when you do come out, you come out a much better person. One who respects alcohol but knows its dangers. One who's got to know themselves in a better way. And things like anxiety, things that I used to wake up worrying about, that all disappears. And other things start to emerge as a certain kindness that comes out that I haven't had beforehand, and a certain curiosity that comes out, which I've not had beforehand. Because the mind is always consumed by where is the next drink coming from. And in all these situations, even with the children, even in the evenings, I'll be thinking, I know, where's my next glass going to come from? Shall I go to the fridge and so on? So if you're not drinking, you're not thinking like that. And you have that freedom. And you have the freedom to start talking. You have the freedom to start asking people, where are they? What are they? Where the children are. And that's lovely, but that doesn't come. That doesn't come in 30 days. That probably starts to emerge in 60, 70 days. And that is why it's pretty crucial to get these 90 days on board. And that's when I did my 30 days, I thought, yeah, that's easy. But I didn't feel the true emotions of myself. So I just went straight back into it again. Whereas now I have a distance. Now I have learned, that it can easily come back. I've learned that I don't do things really in moderation. So I've got to be careful about moderation. And I think that I've got to 90 days now. And I haven't said I'm never going to have a drink, as your whole program doesn't really say that. But I treat every day as a new day for me. So each day, I don't look too far ahead. I just think, okay, nice day, not drinking today. Let's see where we go. And so not too far ahead. And I don't have, it's interesting, people are saying to me, you're not going to drink again, because a lot of people want me to drink, because I think it makes them feel uneasy. And they often say, well, you're so much more funny when you drink, but I'm not really at all. I'm much more in tune with me, I think. Now, I think it's their own insecurities that brings those sort of things out.
I think you're probably right. If I heard you correctly, some of the things that you mentioned there that were benefits of being alcohol-free for these 90 days. You mentioned reduced anxiety.
Yeah.
You talked about kindness. You talked about curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
You used the word freedom.
Mm.
And then you were talking about communication, and I guess the word or the phrase that I might use to describe that is more presence. You're more present.
Yeah.
Do those benefits resonate with you? I mean, I'm sure they do because you said them, but I just thought it might be worthwhile repeating them because they're so noteworthy.
Well, it is. I mean, you come to live in the present. It was interesting for me, and I think probably the better way of describing it is that so my children are grown up, so most of them are away now. But at Christmas, all three of them came back, bar one. And it was interesting to hear them. So I did, obviously not, I wasn't drinking. They were, but not very moderately compared to how I used to drink. But my daughter said to me, Dad, you're so much more coherent and you're much more funny, which I thought was quite interesting, And my son said, yeah, Dad, and you don't repeat yourself and you remember what happened last night. So I'm getting the feedback from them. But what I enjoyed was them in the moment, the present time. I haven't had a Christmas where I have really just sat round and really just enjoyed them for who they were, where I've listened, understood, and just enjoyed. And my son is getting married, and his new lady was for the first time away from her family, but joined ours. And that was lovely. So I got to really know her, spend time with her, talk to her. So it's living in the present. And that's what you miss with alcohol. And that's where you just lose the moment because you're just thinking on the effects of where can I get my next drink from, and that your mind is preoccupied by drinking. And then the actual effect of the alcohol takes over, really. And you think you're being funny or you think you're saying, but you're not really at all. You know? So I'm pleased I learned that.
Beautiful. And just for the listener who might be curious about what you experienced through the 90 days in terms of the features of the program that we've put together, would you just describe what the experience is and what it was like? This doesn't need to be a glowing testimonial, of course. It can just, if you can just, without putting any mayonnaise on the story, just maybe factually articulate what you experienced. I'm sure that would be helpful for many of our listeners.
Yeah, well, no, that's quite, because so when I joined on my first day on the Zoom meeting, so we'll start with the Zoom meetings, and so you have a professional coach there inside. So we had, Victoria and Sarah, and there were a bunch, mostly men, but with some few women, and mostly from different parts of the world, mostly American and Australian, one from Tokyo, and everybody is dealing with the same problem. They're drinking. But what I slightly got in shock with to begin with was that I thought everybody was drinking an awful lot more than I did. So I felt misplaced in it to begin with. So there was a guy who's, I won't say his name, but he was drinking a bottle of scotch a day. And I was thinking, wow, that, I think I've overstepped the mark here. I don't think I have that sort of a problem. But what I was doing was I was comparing. And I don't think you can compare. And that's what the coach was saying. You can't compare what you did. But it made me wobble and it made me question, should I be doing this? Because it is an expensive course. And it is a course where you think, gosh, this is quite a bit of money. Have I overstepped the mark? And then as it progressed and I got to know some of the people, I realized that I was in a community which was completely safe. Now, when you're drinking on your own, you are on your own. It's a very lonely place to be. It's something you don't really share. You don't really share it with your friends. You don't share it with anybody else. And it is a lonely place to be. And I just think that in this community, for the first time ever, I could share. And so I was able to share with them where I was with drinking. And you suddenly had this group that could identify with you, share with you, understand you. And that brought great comfort, huge comfort, in fact. And then they became sort of like Zoom friends, really, with a similar problem, but we're all dealing with it. Like-minded people, a lot of like-minded people, a lot of people running businesses. And we were all guided very nicely, very professionally by the coaches. So that was good. I enjoyed that. And the other thing which was really quite strong for me was, and I didn't think it would be, it was the Marco Polos. And
would you just explain Marco Polo to our listener? Because there are some folks who don't know what that means or what that is. And if you can't accurately describe it, I'm happy to.
Yeah, well, yeah, I can, because with Marco Polo, I didn't really know what it was either. And Marco Polo is an app whereby you join a group of people, and this particular group is the Project 90, and you can record a video of yourself and dictate where you are every day, if you wish, or every other day, depending. But you can just state how you feel. And this was quite useful because some days in this journey, you feel absolutely lousy, and other days you feel absolutely great. Other days you feel, why am I feeling like this? And why do I want to go to the off license or the bottle shop? So you can share it. And within this group, I don't know, it's probably about the current number is probably about 30, but I know there's about 190 members in it. Those 30 that are in your current group come back and respond. So people will identify with how you're feeling, come and give you advice, tell you where you are, help you. And suddenly you realize it's a support network. And on top of that, because you're doing it on your own and talking into a telephone, you can be incredibly vulnerable. You can say exactly how you feel, where you are. And it's extraordinary the take-up of the friends that you have in this group will help pick you up again. So that was incredibly strong, much stronger than I realized it. I at the beginning, slightly poo-pooed it, thought, no, this is not for me. I'm a bit English in that respect. And but I realized actually after a while, and where it really helped me was that and I'll tell you an example, I came back home when I was suffering really quite badly through Gilly's loss, came back home to our family home in the country on a winter's night, getting closer to the anniversary of her death. The lights were out. It was cold inside. There were no children. And I felt really quite lost and just really felt like a drink, because that's the way I would have normally dealt with it. I would have just turned to the bottle and had a drink, numbed the emotions and dealt with it. So what did I do instead? I turned to Marco Polo. So I said to Marco Polo, which obviously the whole group listens to when they can, where I was and how I was feeling. And before I knew what, I had people from all over the world coming into me, supporting me, telling me, don't do that. You're fine. You're on your own. We're here for you. And that carried me through.
Thank you for sharing again. Beautiful. Christian, congratulations on the progress that you are making. I was about to say that you've made, because that would be past tense, as if there was a bookend to it, right? But you at least you appear to me that you are continuing to make progress, not just around alcohol, but also around presence with your children, connection, reducing anxiety, having a more maybe positive or joyous outlook. Does that resonate with you? Does that feel right?
Yeah, it does. I mean, my position, obviously, with Gilly's death, and and we all have dreams, we all have ambitions, we all have a future to live. And when you lose your best buddy, all your plans are tied up with that person. And when that happens, your whole world is turned upside down, and you either sink or you swim. And I had to really reinvent myself. And so part of that reinvention was to look at what I was doing and obviously starting a new business, look at what I was drinking, and obviously that became Project 90. And then look at my adventures again and look at the things that I wanted to do. So already I'm planning to sail across the Atlantic in November of this year, which is a boyhood dream that I want to do. And with the kids, we've all decided to climb Mont Blanc, which is the tallest mountain in Europe. So things to do, places to go, things to experience. And I think that's so important. You've got to have things to do.
Sailing across the world and climbing the highest mountain in Europe with your children. Just another day for this 60-year-old retiree who started his own business again.
Yeah. Well, yeah, not sailing the world, sailing across the Atlantic, halfway.
Oh, just the Atlantic. Okay. All right. Sounds like you're doing okay, Christian. Sounds like you're making things happen and you're sucking the marrow out of life, so to speak. So I acknowledge you and I thank you so much for sharing your journey and your experience with us.
Pleasure. Well, it just gives me a chance to say thank you for putting this whole project together. And it's made a huge difference to me. I would like to think that I'm going to carry on now alcohol-free. I don't ever like to say it too much, but I feel I'm a much better person alcohol-free, and that's the person that I want to be, really. And that's what you and Project 90 has given me. And a slight thank you to your two coaches, Victoria and Sarah. They've been absolutely brilliant, really good. So well done.
Thank you, Christian. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. I want to load you up with some free stuff. If you look in the show description, there's a link there to get my guide, which is the Alcohol Freedom Formula Guide. And in that guide, I will walk you through the process and system for successfully reducing or quitting alcohol. It's the same system and process that I give to my clients inside of Project 90. And if you would like to get your hands on that guide, you can click the link in the description part of this episode, or you can go to alcoholfreelifestyle.com/guide. Likewise, if you would like to be connected
considered for Project 90 to join our community and get some accountability, some coaching, and have fun, achieve some goals over at least 90 days with our help and support, then you're invited to schedule a complimentary coaching call with one of my coaches. You can do that by clicking the link in the show description or going to alcoholfreelifestyle.com/schedule. Now, Project 90 is for over 30s only. And it's really for people who are ready to get long-term power over alcohol. You don't have to quit forever, but you will have to quit for at least 90 days with our support. Just a reminder, 95% of my content is free and plastered all over the internet. If you just Google James Swanwick and the word alcohol, you'll find that. For those of you who want additional support, if you want coaching, fun, accountability, if you realize that you can't do this on your own or you just plain don't want to, then I invite you to schedule that call and we can talk about if Project 90 is for you. If you would like to take some of my supplements, swanvitality.com is the website. I'll put a link in the show notes as well. I have a liver support product called Loving Liver, which I designed and specially formulated to help remove toxins from your liver after years of alcohol consumption. Again, there's a link in the show description. We've also got a green powder there, which turns into a green juice filled with amazing ingredients to support you and give you energy throughout the day. And there's also a magnesium product, which I take every night to help me prepare for sleep and to sleep through the night. So there's a few options there. Lastly, if this episode or the show in general has helped you or supported you in any way, I would so appreciate it if you would write a review. It really does help the show climb the rankings and expose the show to people who don't yet know about us. So if this show has benefited you in any way and you feel compelled to pay it forward, just writing a short little review, hopefully a nice one, will be so appreciated and I will thank you immensely. Lastly, if you'd like to talk to me about anything at all, feel free to send me an email at james@alcoholfreelifestyle.com. I do read and respond to every email. And you can also follow me on Instagram at James Swanwick. Send me a message there. And I look forward to connecting with you soon. Catch you on the next one.